Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. My name is Liza McCarthy and this is going to be a very long draw this with me video. So this was quite an interesting drawing I did. It was completely textured and something, let's just say, out of my comfort zone since I didn't really draw mugs that much, but it was a really fun one and I just enjoyed it so much. The sketching phase was something I took my time on and kind of enjoyed the most since, you know, you're just kind of adding the elements and really playing fun and making kind of fun and being very enjoyable and very happy with your art at this stage. I do know that my sketches really suck sometimes and they really have this ugly face, but I push through it nonetheless since it's kind of fun and I really love sketching personally, no matter how bad they look. I really love sketching, so it was something very fun for me to do. You know, it's something that was very interesting and something that took a lot of time, obviously, because sketches take me around 1 hour or so, and this one did take me quite some time to draw and kind of calculate, especially the pine cone. The pine cone was the hardest part to draw. It is so detailed and the sketch looked really bad, but in the end, overall, with the line art and all, it did take me some practice and time to make it a perfect, near perfect pine cone. This artwork was something that was very interesting as in another aspect, because it is one of those artworks, you know, when you kind of finish and you look at the result and you keep correcting and correcting all your little tiny mistakes, and to people, when you ask somebody like a new fresh set of eyes, right, like another person's perspective, they're like, oh, it's cute, like this is so beautiful, but to you it's really not that good and it's ugly and there's something that just isn't making sense. So I think I cut this out of the editing part of the video, but I have corrected and tediously, like, really worked on the details of the candy cane and the hair. It was something very tedious. It was like very small task that you just have to pay attention to and focus on. So that was just kind of the thing I had at the end, which I was quite uncertain and confident, but in the end, I would say this is a very pretty good artwork and very stylized, and so it was very fun actually. And I do think that I want to make more of those kind of mug girls and stuff and those kind of food, you know, arts, because this was very enjoyable and very fun. And I know that I have a sort of different kind of shape of the mug compared to the reference, but I just wanted to make it this way. And the leaves, yeah, especially the leaves, considering the shape that I drew was ugly, but I kind of made a bit of a difference with the shape of the mug, you know. I don't know why I was talking about the leaves right now, but I'm just kind of overall rating my artwork right now. So I've been asked another question, which is basically, what brush do I use for line art? And this is my favorite brush, which is dry ink. It's a Procreate default brush. That means basically whenever you buy Procreate, you just have to have it under inking or so. And this is a very cute brush. I tried sketching with it. It was really hard because some illustrators recommend it as a sketching brush. And I think the 6B pencil, which is also another Procreate default brush, is the best for sketching in my personal opinion. But nonetheless, I do think that the line art, this kind of line art brush, the dry ink brush, is amazing for line art. And my new approach to art and layers has been quite a journey, especially considering my style changes and kind of fluctuates between lineless and kind of either I add the details or either I kind of don't do that and make a line kind of, you know, when you just, there's two types of art actually that I personally gravitate towards. There's the art with the line art and the sketching sort of, and then you color it in and you make it beautiful. Or the second one, which is the style of art that has no line art. Basically, yeah, you just kind of, it's very lineless and it's very textured. And that's what I'm aiming for. That's what I'm doing right now. And that's what I'm kind of gravitating towards most of the time right now. And I just tried this style and then I can't really stop with it. And it does take some time to get used to a new method, a new way of making art. And especially, it's so hard and you have to kind of make yourself learn that and kind of remember what you're doing and all the steps that you're taking and kind of the texture, that the way you do with the texture and all. And I really think that it just takes a lot of time and practice. And at the beginning, it took me over 7 hours to make a lineless illustration because I was new to it. Right now, it just takes me 3 to 4 to 5 hours to make that illustration. So, like the dtiys, I have posted on my YouTube and on my Instagram the new Draw This in Your Style challenge I created with the Valentine's Day girl holding this kind of beautiful box of chocolates. That is truly, let's just say, it took me about 5 hours to make it, since I was kind of not sure with the color palette, and I was kind of searching colors on Pinterest, and I kind of figured I chose the best colors I could, so I really liked it. And overall, the illustration techniques I'm using right now is to remember to add noise and shadows kind of with the brush, to use a lot of textured brushes and kind of research what other artists prefer, since that's something I'm very interested in, to see what brushes they use. And sometimes I also try out their brushes and see what works for me, what doesn't, and then depending on if I like the brush or not, I take it and kind of use it from that moment onwards. Obviously, I will be doing a video where I go into more details and show you the brushes I use, the brushes I have got, and the brushes that are Procreate defaults. So if you're thinking to invest into Procreate and to see the brushes they have, I would be gladly your tour guide to show you what brushes they have got as the default brushes. And I just have my own brush set. I did not create the brushes, but I just created this brush set where I just put all the brushes I like and that are my favorites into it, and it's called Liza brush. So whenever you see me choosing a brush, you could always see that Liza brush kind of with the purple heart. That's my kind of brushes I like and prefer and use a lot of the time. I do have to say that this is pretty hard to create art that is lineless, since you have to, I use the dry ink and I kind of outline the shapes, the line art, because it has to be precise. And then basically I kind of outline all the shapes and I have to fill in those little holes because I kind of fill them in. So it remains kind of like a filled shape, since I don't really like when the holes are like, when it's not finished and you can see the holes of the other layer, if that makes sense. And I just feel like this style takes a lot of getting used to, because I feel like you have to focus and pay attention on something you have never focused. So, when you kind of have an art style, right? Illustration with line art, and then you kind of colored everything underneath and you have a line art on top, and then you're removing the line art and you look at the ugliness that is, it looks pretty decent, but then when you just remove the line art, it looks ugly. So I prefer to have the line art on top, but I make it kind of transparent, 20 to 40%, I think, to 30, depending on what I'm looking for. And then I kind of outline, and obviously I have to switch off the line art layers so that I could focus on the silhouette and on everything so it looks cute, because if it's not straight, if it's something that looks weird, it won't be good, it won't look cool or anything, it won't look like, let's just say, defined, and it won't look kind of pretty normal, it'll be like very shaky and very not neat and like weird. because I had this when I just like do it, and then some of the shapes look very weird and very not straight and very not kind of symmetrical in the way I want them to look, if that makes any sense at all. So I do prefer to switch off the liner and kind of correct and erase and maybe add things so that things look better. Like if you look right now here, you could see the hair is just overflowing through the mug, and that looks not really nice. So, it's something I have to focus and pay more attention to make it look really neat and kind of normal, so that nothing overlaps another thing that I don't want it to, and then nothing looks weird or anything like that. Another style choice I made is to kind of lift the head. Since in the original reference, you could see that the girl is like, you can't see her nose, but you can see her eyes, and I didn't want that. I think that I wanted to have a face, a very cute girl just coming off, because I just felt like this is the direction I want to be taking this in, since it's very cute and I want to make it more Christmassy. And I feel like in the reference she looks really shy, right? But I want to convey a different message in my illustration, that she's like just like a cute girl coming off the cup of coffee, which is totally not weird. We always swim in coffee, obviously, or hot chocolate. And that is something I kind of gravitate towards, to have the whole face, since I thought I could do a half face, but then I couldn't. It was harder than it looks, and I wanted to show her some neck and kind of features and all that. That's my personal choice. And then, basically, another thing I had to work on was the candy cane. You will see that it was quite hard to work on the candy cane, and especially to make the candy cane like really straight and really having it have depth and the sort of shadow and light and all that. So especially with the other elements of this illustration, like the cup, basically the mug, and the pine cone and the leaves, it was something that you have to really focus attention on the light and darkness and where your light source is. I think I never focus on my attention on where the light source is, basically where it's coming from, because I usually kind of have that's something I really like about the Draw This in Your Style challenge, since it's a ready-made illustration and you can see where the light comes and where the darkness comes, basically the shadow. So when I was creating my Draw This in Your Style challenge, I had to keep this in mind, that I have a light source and one part is going to be shadowy, one part is going to be light. So that's something that's also very hard just to think of, because usually I just keep the light source somewhere off to the right of the image or off to the left of the image, depending what mood I'm in. But usually it's something you have to really consider when making a Draw This in Your Style challenge, if you want to do the shadow parts and highlight parts of the kind of the drawing. And for my textured kind of look, I always have to use a clipping mask on top of the solid outline of the color, which is something I have to do. It's a priority. It's something that makes the illustration more beautiful, and something that just doesn't really mess with the overall shape of the illustration. It just adds on top, and you add on top, and then you merge them, or you group the layers together. Especially in this illustration, I do feel like I was experimenting and trying new brushes, and just basically the brushes I never really used, to see how that would work, since I was really struggling with adding the light and the darkness to the cup, since I didn't want to blend so it would look smooth, and I didn't want to make it look less texture than it's supposed to be. Then I wanted to visualize it, that I see it in this way, because in the illustration, the reference illustration, it's smooth yet textured, yet the whole cup, while looking at it, you could see that it's smooth, right? It's like a real cup. And I wanted to have the element of texture, since I am so big on focusing on it and I really want to try it out. So it's just basically looking for random brushes, taking them and kind of blotting them out to see what would happen, and then merging the details. And overall, at the end, I did add some minor changes to the shadow and light to make the cup more vivid and more kind of, you could see the glisten, kind of the the highlights of the cup, kind of the glistening of it. That is something I had to keep in mind, obviously. And another thing I really liked about this illustration is the fact that it's like the candy cane is totally 3D. It appears to be 3D. You know, it's kind of like pops out of the illustration. So does the cup. So it has those kind of bold elements that pop out of the illustration, especially the pine cone and the leaves and everything. And the shadow at the end is also something I had to keep in mind to make it look like it just, it isn't really a 2D, it's something that just pops out, but it's at the very same time, it's a very Christmassy and a very kind of solid illustration, so I had to remember that. One thing I really don't enjoy nowadays about my art is the skin. Usually I blended things and it was not good and not bad. It was hard to make the skin. But nowadays it's kind of simple yet still hard for me sometimes to make the skin textured and all. And I have to remember the way I add shadows, the way I add the blush to the cheeks, and the way I kind of work with the highlights and the dark parts, kind of the shadows of the face. Hair was also a bit tricky. Usually hair is interesting and very easy, but this one was pretty tricky since it has this kind of unstandardized, kind of weird sloping coffee shape. And I had to think about the highlights and the shadows and all. So this was a bit tricky since I think I kind of drew them in this weird shape. And it was something that I had to kind of fix at the end and just add a bit more pizzazz to the hair, if you know what I mean. And the shadows were kind of also textured, obviously, this whole illustration was. Something I super enjoyed about this illustration, that was an easy one. So I really enjoyed about this illustration, there was this huge element that I really liked, was the pine cone. It was hard, I know, but it was so beautiful. It turned really nice, and I was really proud of myself, and I really am proud of myself for doing the pine cone, because at first I just wanted to leave it at that and kind of not make it any more interesting or so. And I am really glad I kind of worked my way for the kind of the pine cone, kind of really wanted to make it more interesting and give it more depth. And especially the fire, the fire, kind of the candle light that I'm working on right now, that you could see, this was pretty hard as well, since I had to figure out how to make it look realistic, and I already had this fire brush, and it just looked totally natural. So I was just trying to make it darker or more fire-like, and it didn't kind of go as planned, so I just left it yellow fire. So I think that I was really looking at the reference for this, because the fire is yellow, but I then wanted to add a bit of a redness to it, like a really, really red orange tint, but it didn't really work out, so I think yellow was kind of fine as well, The berries. The berries was pretty. They were really not hard. They were kind of, simple. I already did berries in my other illustration, and it wasn't really hard. You just have to focus on the light and on the shadow and kind of give it just depth overall. So it wasn't really hard. It was something that was pretty normal and something that was pretty interesting. Especially I had to move the center of the berries, kind of the twig of the berries, to make it look more like berry-like, and that they weren't perfect. They were like in a different position. So that's what I did right here. And the brush I use overall for the leaves and basically for most of the illustration is the chalk brush. It's one of my most favorite brushes because it's so textured. I tried sketching with it. It doesn't really work. Some artists use it as a sketch brush. I don't. But anything that is like very chalky and very textured is an amazing brush, because it just has to be the number one brush on my list, since it kind of added my illustrations more of that textured pizzazz. And especially since I'm going for this textured look, I always have to add noise. I learned this when I was in Maddie Art's Patreon, and she said that it was very interesting and you just make the illustration more textured by adding noise feature on Procreate. So I did that, and I always do that at the end. Sometimes I do forget it, but then you don't really notice because the illustration is very textured already, but most of the times I do, and it looks even more beautiful because you have this kind of textured feeling and a very rough feeling, and sometimes some parts look smooth, so this just adds texture to whatever is left smooth and whatever can be touched by my brush, so if that makes any sense. Obviously, my art process right now has been a bit of let's just say it's not really going well. I love my art and I'm working on it, but at the very same time I had a small art block, not significant, it's really not significant, really not that big, but I was doubting my art, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is how I draw, like, horrible. And then when I have these thoughts, I just go on and kind of force myself to draw, and then maybe I get out of it, because I felt like I was stuck on the Draw This in Your Style challenge I right now did, because I have made the sketch since the beginning of January, and I haven't touched the artwork since 2 days ago. Since 2 days ago, I just finished it, so I was really unmotivated, and right now I'm in a weird space with art, so I'm kind of loving it, and at the very same time I'm kind of not in the mood for it, and that's kind of something I want to improve on my relationship with art, obviously, because sometimes it's just very sad when, I draw and I make money off drawing, right, and I kind of gain new kind of art moods, like art friends, and gain new followers, and then I'm kind of not drawing every day, which is a bit sad, because I have to force myself to draw every day, obviously, because if I don't, then I know that I won't progress, and there are a lot of artists that are a huge inspiration to me with how they use their brushes and how they make their artworks, so I aim towards sort of their coloring style, because right now I'm very pleased with my sketching, kind of with my art style, but I'm not very pleased with my coloring style. I'd make it more, I don't really know what I want to go for, because I want to make it textured, and at the very same time I want to make it kind of precise, but right now all I get is textured, so I'm working on art and working on improving and having a better mindset towards my art and my goal, because I have a lot of art resolutions that I really want to follow too. And especially I'm really excited of drawing some more clothes, and maybe I think since I really enjoyed creating the Draw This in Your Style challenge I did for 640 followers, I do think that I want to continue creating original art, which is something that says a lot, because usually I'm kind of very scared of original art. What if somebody won't like it? And if it's a Draw This in Your Style challenge, you already have the shadows, the colors chosen, and everything. So it's something I have to give a lot of thought to. But I'm very, very, very happy with how original art is turning out nowadays. I'm really happy with the way I'm kind of going with it, with the flow and how it looks. So I do think I want to create and consider creating more original art pieces. So maybe, because I'm really getting a really positive kind of, people are very positive and very happy about what I did. They very like my Draw This in Your Style challenge. So I do think that I want to continue in the route of original art, and I know there are a lot of Draw This in Your Style challenges, but I don't have the time to join all of them, and I really want to join some Valentine's Day challenges, because there are a lot of new challenges that I want to join. But at the very same time, I do think I want to make more fan art and make more original art, because obviously it's very hard creating a palette, it's very hard creating a pose or thinking of a pose, but at the very same time, it's very enjoyable and something you could use as your own OC. And I'm still thinking of creating a webtoon. So that's something in the plan. I can't promise it now or anytime soon, but I do know that I want to create a story And I think since I'm taking English literature, I think I've been better with creating stories and more kind of, and since I've been reading especially, I have a lot of ideas and a lot of kind of inspiration from the stories I've been reading, from the books I've been reading. So I do think I want to make something magical, like a fantasy, and I do want to have romance. But the problem is I cannot draw boys, so that's kind of a negative part, the negative aspect, because I want to have it like a beautiful princess, but that's what I'm thinking. That's kind of my ideas. I know not everybody's, not everybody would like the idea of a princess, but just wait till you hear it. So it's an overall idea. It's still in the air. It's still in the process. It's not developed anytime, but this is what I want to aim for. So I think I want to create like a princess who is basically Viola, my main character, if that's what I want to make her. I'm still thinking of that. So it's kind of an alien new town or something, and I want to have this princess who has insane witch powers. And basically there's a prince or something, and there's like an arranged marriage or something, and basically she's kind of the one who saves the kingdom, because she's like a warrior, and she's so like strong. At the very same time she's kind, and at the very same time I want to give her a bit of spice, a bit of kind of a bit of cinnamon, not really cinnamon, but if you're kind of making a recipe or something and you're adding something, you kind of focus on the flavors you want to add, right? So the same thing with the webtoon is I want to focus on how I could add grief or sadness or trauma or something, so to spice it up and to make it very different, and to give the character more depth, so it's not really just like comics. But at the very same time, I think I cannot aim for that, because I'm not really amazing at the storytelling part of things, and I do think that maybe it's just better if I created a life comics with characters, relatable characters, funny stories, and some puns or something. So that's maybe what I'll realistically do, but I'm hoping for something else with a different outcome, with kind of Lore of Olympus, right? Lore Olympus, the the webtoon comics, the one and only, my favorite one, which is written by Rachel Smythe, and I have the volume 1. I want to get the volume 2 and 3, and 4 whenever that comes out. So anyways, I do think I want to aim for something like that, something like a magical world where she created, right? And something like very interesting and has a drama and depth and all of that. And I'm still thinking about it. It's very hard to create something originally interesting and to work on the characters, because I just feel like if I would to do the webtoon, I would be focused on it a lot. And since I want to continue with YouTube and kind of art, I think the webtoon will be so much, and it'll be so much work and so much focus, and it'll take so much of my time. And since I also have a podcast and all, I really love chatting to you guys in the podcast and all. So I really think I'll consider and still think what route I want to take my webtoon to, because that's kind of a big moment. It's a very big decision, so I'm still thinking about this, and I'm still not sure, but we'll see what I'll do with the ideas I have. So I'm still considering webtoon and how I'll make it work and all that, but I do think that for the first while, I think I will just practice my art and try to get more better at it, to kind of draw the characters, because I have two kind of ideas of where I want my characters to go to kind of create them. So either create them in the style that I do, but the problem is a character takes over 3 hours, 5 hours to draw, so that would be a downside, and I can't really spend that much time on one character if it's going to be a whole comic panel. So most likely I'll create a cartoonish style with different coloring, or I won't color it at all, and it'll be kind of a real life funny story that is something not really, I don't know how to say it. It's something that not realistic or not fantasy, something that's simple and cute and very easy to draw sort of thing for me. So it's something that would take just a week to create or produce a panel, depending on the panel's length and the way I want to go with it and how frequently I want to post. So a webtoon is basically something I'm dreaming of and something I really want to make. And at the very same time, I do think that it's something that takes a lot of work and a lot of courage to start, because once you've started, you kind of have to finish and kind of have to know where the story is going without making the story lame and without making the story boring. So it's something that has to engage the reader and make them want to come back to you every single week, to the episode every single week. So that's something I have to work on to make it more fascinating and interesting, and something that will maybe lure readers because of its interest and how interesting and kind of magical the comics is. So I'm still thinking of everything, and I do have to consider a lot of aspects. So that would be a very hard thing to do, to consider everything I have to do, because I have this whole huge list of the things they have to draw, the characters I want to make, the personalities of the characters I want to make, especially the discussions the character having, and the templates, and basically the way I want to divide my webtoon comic, the panel, and all sort of things. So it's something that I need to take into consideration before just jumping off and leaping into the beautiful world of webtoon creating comics and all that. And that is all, especially why I think that to create a webtoon, you have to be very organized. And I'm kind of the person that loves organization and kind of structuring things into certain time blocks and time limits and all that, and kind of blocking them out and the things I want to do and having everything pre-planned. So a webtoon is in the works, probably, but still in the far or near future, which I still don't know. But I know that some of you were interested in knowing what will I be doing, and will I be doing a webtoon? Hopefully, really hopefully I will. But it really depends on the circumstances, how free I am, and how invested I'll be in the story, and how interesting I'll make it. So that's kind of something I really have to think of, and not let the readers down, and make it very interesting, and possibly kind of work and make it very neat and very, very, very readable and enjoyable. That's basically all you hope for while making a webtoon or a comic, So I do have to consider also making the story interesting, fun, and enjoyable. Anyways, thank you so much for watching my channel and this video and sticking around. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.